Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's been teaching for a little over a week. And I was pretty excited that this new album by Yelle, L'Air du Verseau, came out because it is a pop album in French. And she is a pop artist, and they are a pop group which has a fair amount of reach outside of France. As we will see, their reach outside of France isn't even mirrored by their reach inside of France. Now, I review a lot of pop on this channel. Part of what I try to come to terms with is the fact that I like pop music, I like taking it seriously, I like studying it, and they usually kind of follow a similar pattern of me saying, hey, why don't people take this more seriously? I don't think we need to do that. Yelle sort of has a different status. Maybe it's because they're French, and therefore don't fall in the same stereotypes of just a crass commercial product, but maybe it's the fact that Yelle really are not a crass commercial product. It's bizarre because Yelle is both the sort of the name, the pseudonym of the lead singer, but also the name of the group. And this is the thing that I think makes them special, is they are a group. It's two, sometimes three people who produce this music and who make it. And as such, it has, I guess, an auteur feel. It feels like it's written by people who really care about the music that they're making. It's not just some pop star who has a pretty face and a good voice and adapts herself to the sound of the time to try to stay relevant. It's more of a group that is just making real music that happens to be in the pop genre. As an album, it's quite refreshing for all the pop that I've been listening to because there's no fat on this album at all. It's 10 songs. Only one song do I really think is worth skipping. It's not too long. Every song has a place, says something different. The lyrics are interesting, though a little bit too punny at times. Although if you don't speak French, I guess it won't matter because this is, and as I will discuss soon, entirely in French. The thing about this album, and that separates it from many other things, is the tone. Like, I legitimately cannot figure out the best way to describe this tone. Like, this is seriously from my notes. It's a dark album that is also bright. So when I say it's dark, I mean, it's got this somber cover, right? I'll show you the cover. It's the lead singer of the band, Yelle, and she's wearing some kind of mesh black mourning half mask. I don't know what it is. You know, she's looking at the camera. It's not trying to be sexy, not trying to be dirty, weird, anything like that. So it's like a pop album, and the overall tone is kind of sad, but it would be wrong to just call this a sad album because it doesn't feel like self-pitying. It doesn't feel like, you know, the Katy Perry album, which had a few songs that were about dancing through tears and I'm in so much pain. It's really hard to define what this album feels like. I'm going to do my best, but the main word that keeps coming back is just restraint. There's just a lot of restraint. So the emotions are fairly strong, but they're restrained. So there's a lot of sadness on this album, a lot of mourning, a lot of longing, but it never ventures into anything too excessive. The music is quite poppy, but there's nothing that seems to be trying too hard to be a hit. Like, there's just so much restraint all throughout the album. Especially, you get to understand how good they are at producing music when you listen to the instrumental breaks in almost every song. You know, it's a pop group with a pop singer at the head, so you're just paying so much attention to that. But they always give a little bit of space, and you realize the quality, the excellent choices that are made in production at all levels, and there's really excellent layering all the way through, good movement throughout the songs. So I was sitting there, I was trying to think about how would I define this music, how do I define the tone? And so I'm sitting there, and a couple years ago in therapy, my therapist said to me, you know, Skye, we were talking about my kids, you know, when I went through a divorce, I was worried about them, all that stuff. He said, you know, sometimes what kids want, you know, like metaphorically, is just at the end of a school day to have milk and cookies. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take that metaphor and apply it directly. So every day when my kids come home from school, we have milk and cookies. They're taking school inside the house, so now when they're done, they come downstairs, they come upstairs. So we're listening to Yelle, we're having our milk and cookies. Too much flour, it was okay. And we're having our cookies, and I just ask my kids, how does this music make you feel? And we're listening to Yelle, L'Air du Verseau, which means Age of Aquarius, by the way. Thankfully, no hair covers on this album. So we're listening to this music and eating cookies, And I don't expect much, you know? Like, what I was trying to get at was, does this album also have this faint hint of darkness and brightness at the same time? A sort of clear darkness. I didn't expect the kids to come up with anything that interesting, but then my daughter came up with something more interesting. This is how she compared the album. You know when you're at a party and it's ending and everybody's really tired, but there's still really cheery music playing? But like people are just like looking on their phones and kind of tired out? This music feels like that. I don't think I'm gonna do much better than that. So thank you to my daughter for coming up with that image of what this album is kind of like. Now I'm gonna go through track by track in my Pink Sauterelle here, discussing it. I'm gonna do a little bit of translation of what the lyrics mean. I don't think it's particularly necessary. The way that she sings is very, as a French professor, I'm very thankful because she sings very clearly. So if my students are interested in pop, I'm just gonna say, hey, have a listen to this. It sounds modern, it sounds good, but the French is very clear. That being said, the first track is a made-up word, émancipance, which is kind of like emancipation, like a cross between emancipation and to think. And it seems to be a sort of clumsy portmanteau here that's about sort of like freedom and thought, but also it's sort of about like not overthinking things when you dance. And it's just a very good kind of club banger. Doom, 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 doom. But all the way throughout, even with it being a club banger, I don't know if it's minor notes, I don't know if it's the way the voice is processed, but I don't quite feel like getting up and dancing or getting on elliptical and like getting pumped up. There's just that little bit of restraint that holds it back. The next track, Je veux un chien, I want a dog. That's why I put Idée Fixe up there from Astérix, if you've ever seen it or read Astérix. Je veux un chien is great. It's a great song. It's a song about female desire. It's about wanting a male lover who's like kind of animalistic and who treats her badly but does it well. Very kind of like that good kind of sexy in pop music where you just kind of go, oh, I sort of get it. This makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't know if I would qualify this to be this kind of guy. But anyways, she's saying what she wants, and it's lots of cool like play on words. Je veux un animal, je veux un animal. So I want an animal, I want a ami mal, a male friend. So it's kind of a silly pun, but it's built on this theme. And what I want to do is I actually want to play you the chorus to this, because you can hear the voice. Her voice isn't spectacular, but it's very solid. Sometimes it's a little bit modified with a vocoder or with auto-tuning, but not too strong. But just kind of give a sense of the kind of soaring quality to this track. The production, I suppose it's kind of 80s, but at this point with pop music, I don't even hear 80s anymore. 80s are just so nowies that that's all I can think. The way I actually heard of this band for the first time was 10 years ago, and they covered a song from the 80s, À cause des garçons, and that was the first time I was like, is pop music going back to the 80s? That's interesting. So let me play you a little bit of this song, Je veux un chien. I want a dog, a animal, a male friend. You can start to hear some of the layering in there, and with the instrumental break, you really hear it. Interesting, fun, kind of challenging lyrics. You know, I want a dog, and if someone would be a dog like that, I will be their bitch. I mean, like, she says that in French. I'm not, like, using a bad word. I'm referring to a female dog. Obviously, carries the same connotations. A good song, and maybe the most uplifting song on the whole album, because it just seems to be about what she wants. The rest of the album is just... seems to be a lot of disappointment and longing in the rest of the album. But even that song, I think you heard, is a lot of longing. And maybe that's where this kind of sad feeling comes in. The next track, Je t'aime encore, I Still Love You. A lot of auto-tune on this, but still some nice elements. It's cool kind of like rhythm in the back, kind of a gentle piano. It's very kind of mournful and meaningful. And I did, my 5 minutes of research. And it turns out this is a song about being rejected in France. Like not feeling like her music or their music is appreciated in France. And as a French professor, I would like to say to France, the hell's wrong with you, France? Do you know how hard it is to be a French professor with all the Spanish culture that's everywhere and all these examples of great songs and culture that all my students are exposed to in French? You know, right? What did Camus say? That the French language is his country? If you love the French language, which you should, how can you not fully embrace a pop star who manages to be successful outside of France singing in French? Those damn sellouts, Daft Punk and Phoenix, they don't do it. David Guetta doesn't play in French. Anyways, very frustrating. Very frustrating when a country doesn't appreciate its own ambassadors. But again, it's this sense of longing and loss. Like, I still love you even though you mistreat me. And she's speaking about her own country. A quick word, the music video is very interesting for this song. It's her getting a haircut in real time while lip syncing. I don't know how they did it, but it makes me anxious. Like, what if they cut wrong? It's really nice. I would say it's sort of the most clear attempt at having a single, but still kind of downbeat and mournful. It's that end of the party. The next track, Karate. I've been watching the wildly bad Cobra Kai show lately, so I've been thinking a lot about Cobra Kai. Bad, but very watchable. So this is an interesting song because this feels like it's almost like the first track, Emancipance, trying to be kind of a club banger, a song to dance to, and it's just repeating over and over again. Ton kimono est un pyjama, ton kimono est un pyjama, ton kimono est un pyjama. And, you know, kimono, you understand that word, kimono. Pyjama, you understand that. You know, kimono, a Japanese word, pajama, I believe it is an Indian word, or Hindi. One of those. Point is, it's not from a Romance language. And it's over and over and over again with this theme. And apparently in my research, the idea is that, like, she wants to see what somebody is really like when they're by themselves. And, like, sort of like a sexual thing. Like, are you able to, like, perform and be virile and masculine when you're not with your friends? I guess that's the concept of karate. I don't know. I do like that it calls out pajamas as being terrible articles of clothing that should never be worn. Pajamas, the great anti-sex clothing. Just, why would anyone wear pajamas? This is the thing I don't get. I don't take a lot of stands on this channel. I am anti-pajama. And this really calls that out. But it's a really nice track. It repeats it over and over again. It repeats it too much. But then if you watch the video for this, it's this dancer doing these really nutty, very cool dances, improvised, synced with the song itself. Very enjoyable. I'm actually going to put a link to that in the description here. Just watch this guy dancing as it goes to the music. You get a little bit of the sense. And still, though, there's a part of her singing, and she's wearing one of these mesh half suits with her face half covered, standing in the middle of a lake and just singing. Is it just COVID? Is that what's happening? Is it just that I'm feeling this pall of sadness everywhere, or is it really there? I don't know. Menu du jour, menu of the day. Kind of a weird, like, semi-Arabic sounds. It seems to be a sex song, maybe. Like, the second chorus is all about the delicateness on my ass. But this also seems to be about falling in love. It seems to be sort of a love and seduction song too. So really nice drum production, like drum programming on the instrumental break. Maybe my favorite part of the entire song. If you like excellent drum programming, and again, I'm a drummer, so, like, saying that, part of me thinks I'm a sellout, but, like, it's hard to program drums well. You should really listen. It may be the best part of the whole album, the drum programming on Menu du Jour. It's excellent. The next track, Mon Beau Chagrin, is not good. It might be good for you, actually. If you don't speak French, it might be good because the lyrics are just so obnoxious. They're like, I'm on the tour and I'm making these songs for you, and you, my fans, you're my love, but you're also my greatest grief. Oh, it's just, all right, you're not some hero, okay? You're just a touring musician. Congratulations for you. But at least that's the way I read it. I don't really like it. But fortunately, the album picks up immediately with the track Vous d'en face, which, again, it's a sign of a good album if I can't figure out what's my favorite track. Vous d'en face gets very interesting. It's catchy and kind of off-key. Maybe that's what they're doing to keep this atmosphere. A lot of, like, minors and a lot of off-keys and a lot of flat notes. Cool kind of bells ringing. It evolves very nicely. Maybe the best example of their layering on this album. Sort of an 80s sound. and it's all about just seeing things vue d'en face, seeing things straightforward, seeing things on the front. There's a lot on this album that seems to be about sort of people's artifice. In French, they talk a lot about être et paraître, the being and the seeming. And it would seem that this album, a lot of this is about like what's behind the mask. I can't help it. I'm a French professor. Next track is Noir, which means black. Kind of weak. Is it possible to love Madonna, and I love Madonna, without ever liking it when anybody else sounds like Madonna? Because that's how I am. I love Madonna. I love most of her catalog. But whenever anyone sounds like her, I'm just like, yeah. So this kind of has that sort of thin, mid-range Madonna singing, kind of a late 90s Madonna instrumentation. It's okay. I mean, it's a song about wearing black and staying up late and dancing. The instrumental bit that comes in makes you realize the song would probably be better if it was just sung differently. I think that's the problem with this song. But the instrumental break is great. Some cowbell comes in. It's nice. Then we come to peine de mort, which means death penalty. And if you've ever met a French person, they will tell you immediately that the death penalty has been abolished in France, and that is one of many reasons that France is a superior country to America. I will remind them that when it was abolished, the French people were completely against abolishing the death penalty, and the last time they used the guillotine was 1973. So it's not exactly like they are on the cutting edge of this, but still, they're on the right side of history now. This song isn't about that. I actually taught a song today by a different French singer, Georges Brassens, in which he uses guerrilla rape as a metaphor for the death penalty. It's a beautiful song. I might actually have to do a video about that. Put in the comments if you want to see me give an explanation of the Georges Brassens song sometime. But this isn't about the death penalty. This is a bad pun. Peine de mort means pain of death. The death penalty. But really what she's describing is this sense of mourning and loss. Apparently her father died maybe a couple years ago. I don't know. My mom died a couple years ago. And like October, basically Octobers are always bad for me because I'm always thinking about it. So that kind of mourning could very much be real and in place. But it builds very delicately. Again, this sweet instrumental break comes in. It's not one of my favorite tracks, but it's a solid entry for the album, which really only has that one misstep. And then it ends with the track Un Million, which means a million. Mysterious lyrics here. She talks about a million dead angles. I don't quite get that. Like a million voices, a million this and that. But the instrumentation here is just great. They do the 80s trick of taking her voice and programming it to a keyboard note. So it's like, ha, ha, ha. Kind of like Laurie Anderson, you know, Oh Superman, ha, ha, ha. And then her voice goes over. I'm going to see if I can find it. Copyright goblins be damned. I want to play this for you because I think it is just that good. Un million, Yelle, Y-E-L-L-E. Yeah, let's just listen to a little bit of the beginning here because it's a really good example of the way they're able to layer things over, the way they're able to layer things in their music so efficiently. So I'm just going to skip ahead to like 15 seconds here. And even later, they had this great keyboard part that goes over it that sounds like tinkling keyboards all over the place, kind of like Sea of Simulation by Daft Punk, if you know that. And it's all about like fear and doubting herself and finding her soul under a cover and not knowing herself and lending to this kind of down tone. You kind of hear that, right? The layering underneath. That little guitar. Maybe there's a lot of auto-tune on that, but still, just a great song, a great ending, and it's nice to have the album begin with this sort of dance track and end with this track that's a little bit upbeat, but in general, it just gives you this weird atmosphere. I don't know if it's a good sign or a bad sign. I have no idea what I'm going to title this video. That might be a good thing. Je vais pas parler de cet album en français, ça vaut pas la peine, sauf à dire je suis bien content qu'elle chante en français, et les Français, vous êtes cons si vous n'appréciez pas ce qu'elle fait pour la culture française. Okay, I was just angry at the French in French, but it's okay. All right. Well, and until next time, I am your ami Mal, and for Idées Fixes and Panoramiques, there's the camera.